That's why you should always keep a diary. Once there was a young woman in Korea who was blind in one eye. She decided that once she saved up enough, she would get a cornea transplant. Eventually she did, so she scheduled the surgery. She was very excited for it. However, afterwards, things took a terrifying turn. She stopped texting and talking to her friends and even her family with no explanation. People thought she just needed some time to recover. However, eventually her parents grew worried about her and went to her house. They knocked on her door, but there was no reply. Then they called the police, who broke down the door. Inside the house, they found the young woman lying in a pool of her own blood. Her parents were devastated. No one could understand why she did this to herself. Perhaps it was just a social isolation. However, this theory was quickly changed when the police kept investigating. All the mirrors had been smashed in the house, as well as all other reflective surfaces. But it wasn't until they found the young woman's diary that they really found out what was happening. When they flipped open her diary, they found that on the last few pages she had written over and over again, "My right eye is staring at me." If you've ever thought about getting your ears pierced, don't do what she did. This is the urban legend about a girl in Japan who tried to do it, then ended up with horrifying consequences. So this young girl really wanted to get her ears pierced. After some pleading with her parents, they finally agreed and gave her some money to go do it. But instead, the girl kept the money and decided to pierce them herself and let her friend help her. They heated up a large needle and went for it one day. It was painful, but in the end, she was happy she could finally wear earrings. However, this wouldn't last long. One day in school, she felt an intense pain in her left ear. Her earlobe was itchy, and by the end of the day, she had a headache. She went into the bathroom and saw her ear was very inflamed. Then she looked closer and saw a piece of white string sticking out of her new piercing. She picked and pulled at it, which only made the string longer. Now it was hanging out of her earlobe. The string seemed to be endless. The more she pulled, the longer it got. Finally, fed up, she took a pair of scissors and cut the string. Suddenly, everything went black. There was a burning pain in her ears and her eyes. She began to scream. In the hospital, it was revealed that it wasn't a piece of string at all. She had pulled out a piece of her optic nerve and cut it. She would be blind for the rest of her life. When you go to sleep tonight, don't do what she did. Once there was a young woman named Alicia who moved into a very old house with her parents, but she could have never expected the horrifying things that this would lead to. After living in this house for a few weeks, things started becoming strange. Alicia noticed she was becoming weaker and feeling sick. Pretty soon, she couldn't leave her bed and would sleep for most of the day. The doctors came to examine her, and everyone wanted to find out what this mysterious sickness was, but no one had any answers, until one day Alicia passed away while sleeping. Then, after her funeral, her mother came home and with a broken heart began cleaning her room. That's when she noticed something strange about Alicia's pillow. There were 2 small red stains. She picked it up and realized the pillow was unusually heavy, so she called her husband to go look at it with her. Then Alicia's mother felt something inside the pillow move. Her father opened the pillow and took all the feathers out. There they saw something crawl out. It was a monstrous black spider. Night after night, as Alicia lay in bed, this huge spider had been slowly drinking all her blood through her pillow. Yes, let's do it. So Jane the Killer is another creepypasta. She started out as just a normal girl with a normal family until one day both of her parents were killed by Jeff the Killer. A few years after this happened, the government chose Jane to be a subject of a test injection. This injection was called liquid hate. The goal of this injection was to cut down on the number of serial killers in the world by making the people who get injected extremely angry with homicidal tendencies and violent outbursts for the first 30 seconds after the injection, and then for the remainder of their lives they would have no homicidal tendencies at all. Jane was tricked into doing this by being told she was just going to be giving blood. She was the first person to survive the injection. Although she survived, her eyes were turned completely pitch black, her skin was turned snow white, and her hair was turned jet black. She now has superpowers as a result of the injection, like agility and shapeshifting, and she's dedicated her life to finding and killing Jeff the Killer. The corner game. So the corner game is another paranormal game where you're supposed to summon an entity into a dark room at night. Disclaimer, this video is for entertainment purposes. I don't suggest any of you do this at home. So to play the corner game, you need 4 players and a room with 4 corners. No more, no less. The building that the room is in has to be empty, so only the 4 players in the entire building. Turn off all of the lights except for the lights in the room that you're going to be playing in. Each player has to walk into the room and say their name out loud 3 times as they walk in. After this, choose a designated speaker. This would be the only person that will be able to speak from here on out. No one else can speak. Now turn off all the lights and each of the players sits facing the wall in a corner. The speaker then counts to 3, and on the count of 3, each player moves clockwise to another corner. You repeat this 4 times. During that time, another entity may appear in the center of the room. If any of the players go missing during this time, then you have to do the emergency procedure. I'm running out of time. Follow for part 2.